Yes. So, and I should say, I mean, one of the things we're doing in OME, okay, is so what we've already done in collaboration with the Journal of Cell Biology. So OME is an open source software project. We have a commercial startup that basically provides an avenue for customization and commercial licensing. So with Rockefeller University Press, which is a nonprofit scientific publication press in the United States, with one of their journals, the Journal of Cell Biology, we have a whole software tool that allows authors to publish the data along with the manuscript. So nothing changes about around the electronic publication itself, except the data that underlies the figures is now published as well. You might want to, I know you have no time to do this, but actually the managing editor of Rockefeller Press will be here starting tomorrow afternoon. So he's here. I should have put two and two together. I'm sorry, Sarah. But you know, and Mike Rossner is magnificent, and he's a great, you know, very articulate and very, very thoughtful guy. But you know, that is our effort to say, that is the start of an effort to say you can actually publish this data. And what we'd like to do, what the next few years of the project's about, is actually allowing people to publish the data from their own labs, so that, you know, you could see, if I chose to, we can argue about whether I will or not, but if I chose to, those tools would be there. So I could say these sets of data are now available. So having built the JCB data viewer, and that was a lot of work, but very rewarding, and a great partnership with Rockefeller University and our team. We're very proud of that, and the explicit statement has been made by Mike Rossner and the staff at the Journal of Cell Biology that the goal there is not to have the data viewer for the Journal of Cell Biology, but to kickstart a movement towards making this data available upon publication, so that it should be a data viewer for any kind of data published in any journal. Okay. And then having tried to talk to journals and funding agencies and things like that. Okay. The journals are, by and large, financial organizations. They are either commercial or they're nonprofits that are paying, but either way, they're paying very close attention to their bottom line. Okay. They will not pay the bills for something like this. Okay. It has to be, and there are plenty of examples. The Protein Data Bank, GenBank, the National Library of Medicine, NCBI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These will have to be publicly funded resources. There's just no other way. And they should be. This data is publicly and charitably funded. Charity funded. This data is for the community. So one of these days, the funding agencies are going to have to make that strategic decision to make this happen.
What specific decisions, next steps, policies do you think would improve the situation?
The situation.
The situation you were just talking about, or it needs to be, you said it needs to be publicly funded.
Yeah.
Who needs to make a decision? What decision do they need to make? What would you advise?
So I think the proposition of completely open science in the biological sciences is asking an awful lot. Okay, as I said, a lot has to change. So my own view is, you do things. Let's do things stepwise. Not because, you know, I personally would prefer to tear the whole thing up and start again, but you have an awful lot of people in the system, and a lot has to change. The panels have to change. The peer review process has to change, etc. So my own view is that we should start with providing mechanisms to allow data to be open. Okay. So when I publish, okay, using all of the mechanisms we have in place. But when I publish, the data that is the foundation for the results I am publishing should be available.
And how do you make that happen?
That's very simple. Okay, so first of all, I'm not asking, I don't believe, and I don't want to publish my notebook. I have an awful lot of crap in my notebook, okay? But I have maybe 6, 7 figures worth of data in that paper. The data that I'm presenting in that paper, the images, the mass spectrometry data, the sequencing, et cetera, should be available. Okay. How do I make that happen? We use the applications we already have. As an author, I submit that data, and that data is held in a repository and served. I don't believe just putting it somewhere is sufficient. I think that the idea that we'll just put it somewhere and somebody could download the data, I think that is a bankrupt proposition. That's like me saying, well, the genome exists somewhere on a disk, and I can click and download the genome of whatever organism I want, and I can somehow work with it. The lesson from that all of genomics is applications that can display that data, serve that data, analyze that data, have to be built. We have a good start. It's not by no means done. But then as a scientist, I can access that data. So you publish a paper, I can see the data that you are using to derive your conclusions. And if I have that, I think if we get to that point, there's a strong statement there about being open with your data. The data that you're trying to publish, okay, is valuable. Makes a very clear statement. What you're saying to me is I'm willing to share with you the results that underlie my interpretations. There's a huge statement of integrity there, right? I'm willing to share them with you. It would be great if you looked at them, reanalyze them. Maybe we should have a conversation about that. Maybe you challenge what I've said. A number of people have said, what happens when someone reanalyzes my data and comes up with a different answer? Well, then you have to have a conversation, and that conversation can go a variety of ways. But that's the way that we have always worked. I don't think there's anything new there. Okay, so I mean, we've recently just received an awful lot of funding for OME, so we're happy about that, and so we're very grateful for that kind of funding, and so hopefully that will go forward. I do think one of the challenges is going to be the challenges that we want to place in front of the funding bodies to say, number one, how are you going to provide investment, the necessary investment for the resources to hold, manage, and use the data generated at the various institutions you're going to fund? What is that strategy? Is that strategy just to plainly ignore it? If that's the strategy, okay. But we want that stated very clearly. We want essentially the backup to the requirement that as scientists we hold and curate our data in some way. We want that issue directly addressed, and that's we will be pushing that. The other is I think we want to start moving on, for example, a UK-wide data repository for, say, microscope images. Okay? And we want to see that happen. And we see that not as an end in of itself, but continuing the movement towards open and shared data. A lot of technical problems to be solved there. We think we've solved an awful lot of them, but we have more to do. We want to work with anybody who wants to take on that challenge. But I think those two things, providing the research institutions with the tools they need to manage their data, and to providing some sort of repository for the data, for published data associated with a publication would be good, significant but good first steps, which then we could say, okay, if we had that in place, now we can think of more loftier ambitions. It might be too gradualistic, but those would be big. I think if we got those done, those don't feel like challenges that are impossible, right? So I think those are the two things that we will be actively pursuing.